Welcome to Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray. Zach is the founder of Rooted Wealth Advisors and is one of the nation's leading financial advisors, helping people answer some of retirement's biggest questions, covering topics like income, taxes, and Social Security.
So this is a place where we have to be really concerned about how much of this money am I going to keep?
Zach is here to make sure you can enjoy the retirement you deserve. This is Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray.
It's tempting to hope for the best case scenario in retirement, but the reality is there are several major risks that could send your retirement into a tailspin. Today, we'll help you identify those risks and come up with a strategy to help you protect your family and your future. Welcome to Rooted in Retirement. I'm Kelly Dame. Today, joining me, Zach Gray, founder of Rooted Wealth Advisors. Zach, as always, great to see you.
I'm always excited to be here with you.
Now, this is a tough topic, but it's important we have a bit of a reality check. Things may not go as we expect them to in retirement.
Well, life does throw us a curveball every now and again. So, there's a lot that could maybe throw us off course a little bit. And it's actually why when we bind up our process, we call that our roadmap. And, many of the viewers from today's show might not even remember roadmaps. I will tell you that my father used to kind of take the atlas and turn around, and Kelly, he was trying to, hand it to me to say, hey, where are we going? And, I think that is something that if we got off course, that was what we had to, kind of dissect. How do we get back on course? And I think that's important. And so, though maybe most retirees remember roadmaps very well, that's why we title it that way. Hey, if we get off of course, what are we going to do to kind of bring ourselves back up here on the right road? And there's a lot of things that could come your way. Emergencies, there's no doubt that things can pop up there. Health-wise, that's something that can obviously throw maybe a curveball if things go south there. But what if health maybe goes better than expected? That's something that maybe we don't give a whole lot of thought to. The general idea of even living longer than we expected, that can be a real curveball too.
You said atlas was a word, right? I'll write that down and remember.
That's right.
Kidding. But you mentioned the long and healthy life. To me, when I think about that, that's great in retirement. So what do you mean about that potentially being a risk?
Well, I think that accentuates all the other problems. And, we do see this from time to time where we sit down with a couple and usually it's the guy in the room and he'll say, well, I'm only going to live to 80 years old at the most. There's no way, Zach, that I'm going to be looking at 90, 95, even 100 years old. We don't need a plan for that. And there might be justification even, right? Hey, my father only lived to the age of whatever the case is. Or my grandfather didn't live that long. Well, that might very well be true, but there's a lot of things that have changed, right? Obviously, healthcare as a whole has really pushed our life expectancy further. Of course, in comparison to generations in our past, that accentuates a lot of concerns like, hey, am I going to run out of money? How am I going to make sure to, once again, not only get to retirement, but get all the way through my retirement years? And by the way, with inflation, the way that we've seen it, so it just accentuates all of these concerns along the way, the longer that we live. And I think it's important for folks to really hone in on that and build a plan that really mitigates the majority of those risks the best that we possibly can.
So let's get a little bit more detailed about how you actually help people plan who may be living longer in retirement and they need that money.
Yeah, so I think that we really have to look at these, what we title 5 worlds. We've talked about that on the show in the past, and this general idea of income is incredibly, incredibly important. Most of the time, I don't think that folks have taken really the time and done the due diligence to make sure that they do have enough. And typically when we plug in a lot of data into our income planning software, it's something that, number one, is really the first time that a lot of folks have even seen such a thing. And that surprises me because that's a little bit like trying to hit the target that you can't even see. It's really tough to do, right? And it's something that I think you don't want to go into retirement blindfolded in any way, shape, or form, right? So you've got to be saying, hey, what is my target? What am I trying to spend? What am I trying to do month in, month out, or year in, year out? I think that's incredibly important. Now, the income is going to come from a lot of sources. One of those is going to be your investments, most likely, at least to keep up with things like inflation, etc. What do they look like? And then ultimately, how do we keep more of that in our pocketbook? Maybe that's fees, maybe that's performance, but it also could mean taxes. And we talk a lot about that on the show. And then even looking at things like healthcare, it is our number one expense in retirement, followed by legacy. And really legacy to us is just making sure that we live our life on our terms, that we have enough, but then of course that we leave it behind the best way that we can. Maybe we leave that to a spouse, to a widow. We want to make sure that he or she is taken care of. We want to leave that to maybe our children or grandchildren. What's the most efficient way to do it?
You talked about taxes. I want to hit on that for a minute, as that is a big part in retirement. Tell us about the tax reduction report.
So our tax reduction report is something that our team puts a lot of time and energy and effort into. In essence, we're going to tailor a plan that's unique to your situation to help you make the good decisions that can really stretch your hard-earned money before taxes, well, they're set to go up here in just a few short years. We want to get it done right now, and we would love to get that report in your hands.
And if you want to get started on some of those good decisions, here is your chance to get your hands on this tax reduction report from Rooted Wealth Advisors. Call 855-955-6868 to secure yours today. It doesn't matter how much you've saved for retirement. There'll always be something trying to take a piece of that pie, so let Rooted Wealth Advisors help make sure that you can keep as much as possible. Remember, there is no cost or obligation. Once more, the number to reach them is 855-955-6868. Here's your chance for professional planning, helping keep what you have worked so hard for. Now, important insights to come still. Zach will help you tackle some of the biggest risks to your retirement. And later in Digging Deep, strategies to help you put up guardrails to help keep your retirement from toppling over the edge. Rooted in Retirement continues after this.
Did you know taxes could be your biggest expense in retirement? No one can avoid taxes completely, but with the right strategies in place, you could potentially reduce your taxes in retirement. And reducing your taxes means more of your hard-earned money right back in your pocket. Call now for your free tax reduction report to uncover your future tax savings.
I'm back with Zach Gray, and today Zach is helping us tackle the major risks to our retirement. Now, Zach, some of these risks are really difficult to even start to think about, but when you think about things like medical catastrophe or even something like a catastrophic illness, these are real threats that we have to think about. So how can we start to navigate that in retirement?
Well, you're right. We have to navigate that, and it happens to be the number one cost that we're going to have in retirement. We want it to be travel and spending money on the grandkids, but it's healthcare. And so we have to be thinking about the fact that those costs are on the rise. There's no doubt about that. As we age, there's no doubt that our chances of needing more sophisticated healthcare is, well, it's just going to go up exponentially. Even think about long-term care. Long-term care, there's about a 70% chance that if you're over the age of 65, that you're going to need that type of care. So you think about that. For you and your husband, double that, right? Because, hey, now we've got two individuals in the household, and I know that we can't all use statistics. Anything can happen, but those are expensive costs, and we're seeing costs now that are $10,000+ a month for that type of skilled care on average. That's important that we take a solid look at that and really do what we can to plan for it.
You mentioned husband. That's another big risk. A devastating risk is the loss of a spouse. And the last thing you want to do is take something that is just so emotionally hard for you and turn it into something that is even more financially difficult. So how do you help people talk about that and navigate that portion?
Yeah, that's something that's really, really tough. And sadly, we've had a few clients that have been great clients of ours pass away here in just the recent past. And so whether it's myself or any of the advisors on the Rooted Wealth Advisors team, we know that we have to handle that because it's a very emotional type of meeting. It's a very emotional type of visit. We have to get all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, and we need to get some things done, of course, but we of course have to juggle all the emotion that goes in with that. And I think that's really important as you start to think about even simple things. For a spousal couple, a married filing joint couple, well, they can make double the amount of money from a tax perspective and be at that relatively same threshold as someone making, half of that as a single taxpayer. Will it really change that much? The chances are no, right? So those things are important. We start to go, wow, this is maybe now taking a much bigger bite out of the pie for this widow when it comes to just taxes in our little example here, let alone all the other pieces of the puzzle. What did he do that now we must maybe hire that out? What did she do that maybe now we hire or spend assets on that particular need? And that's something that's really, really tough. It actually reminds me of a really quick story. My grandfather was remarried to the only grandma I knew, Grandma Marilyn, and she needed actually 18 years of care in the nursing home. She had Parkinson's disease. And so while we knew that, at some point she would pass, we never knew when. We didn't necessarily expect 18 years. And that kind of goes back to the answering of your first question. Wow, here's a big, big cost. Then at that point in time, she passes away in November. And I remember sitting down with my grandfather as we were doing a little bit of planning, and I said, hey, Gramps, if there's anything that we need to do, we've only got a short window to do it. So I need to kind of take emotion and kind of put it on the side of the desk here, and we need to focus on the data. What are some things that we might need to do? And once again, maybe that revolves around taxes. Maybe that revolves around income. Maybe that just revolves around just general planning. But I think it's important for folks to know that, hey, these conversations are important. And once again, we want to make sure that, of course, if it's both of you or if it's ever just one of you, if you happen to be in a marriage, that we're taking care of all of those concerns.
That's why it's so important we talked about, I's dotted, T's crossed, and to be taking care of other things so that you can focus on when emotional things do come up, you can kind of tackle it head on. We talked about taxes, and I'd love to talk and bring up again that tax reduction report that you're offering and what the benefits are to our viewers today.
Well, I think that tax reduction report is critical. I think it's critical for folks, whether married, and we're looking at both of those folks, or once again, we were talking about what happens if you happen to be widowed. Because once again, you can make roughly half the money. Your standard deduction is cut in half as well. So what are we doing to leverage the fact that, say, both of us, husband and wife, are here on earth, that we can maximize and squeeze as much of that back into our own pocketbook? Because if we can get it over to something as simple as a Roth IRA, and we would take folks through kind of this SRT planning, this strategic Roth transfer process, well, now all of a sudden we've gotten money to an account that we aren't forced to take distributions from. And here's what I want you to know. I think that right now one of the most missed segments of anyone's plan is tax planning. And we can really lean in and help here with our tax reduction report. It really only takes a simple phone call and a few minutes of your time, and we'll make sure that you sit down with one of our fiduciary advisors. It's as simple as calling 855-955-6868. And once again, that number is 855-955-6868.
There, of course, is so much value there, and again, we'll be sharing that number with you. But if you've got a question about retirement, make sure you don't go anywhere. Zach has the answers coming up in our Q&A segment. Rooted in Retirement continues right after this.
No one can avoid taxes completely, but with the right strategies in place, you could potentially reduce your taxes in retirement. When you take the time to put the right strategies in place, that means more of your hard-earned money stays in your pocket, not Uncle Sam's. Call Rooted Wealth Advisors now for your free tax reduction report and uncover your future tax savings.
Does all the political rhetoric have you confused? Let's cut through the confusion together. In addition to your very own tax reduction report, I want to offer you a resource that helps you plan regardless of who is in the White House now and into the future. As the retirement landscape changes and new tax policies are put in place, let's protect what you've worked so hard for. Call now for your very own tax reduction report, and our team will include this important guide that speaks to you about concerns of political uncertainty now and into the future.
In today's Digging Deep, Zach helps you put up guardrails to keep your retirement from toppling over the edge. Zach?
Thanks, Kelly. I can't wait to, well, dig deep as we start to think about guardrails in your retirement. So the idea of guardrails, you might be wondering, what does candy have to do with anything? The idea of gummy bears or some sort of licorice. Why? Well, I'll tell you what, as I was thinking about this particular segment, I started to think about my own personal life. And here's what I know about me. If there are any cookies in the house, if there's any candy in the house, I'm going to seem to find my way to it, just the way that it is. So I need to make sure that I'm taking steps to keep me away from those things. Let's not buy the Oreos. Let's not go ahead and stock the pantry full of candy. Heck, even to the point of if I'm going to stick with my workout regimen, I have to set out my shoes in the morning. I've got to have my shorts ready, my workout attire just sitting there ready to go. Because if not, I fall back into this trap that I think all of us fall into, is just kind of falling back into comfort. And I will say that that is something you've got to be on the lookout for in retirement. This idea that, hey, I've saved all of this money, maybe I can just stick my hand right on into the jar here and pull out as much as I want. We've sadly seen this happen with a few clients over the years. We go in with a plan. The plan is we're going to spend, let's say, $5,000 a month. We look at saying most of that's coming from Social Security. Hey, you've got some money saved here as well. We're going to pull some out of the jar every single month. We're going to get it to you. We're going to build that plan accordingly. But wouldn't you know it, instead of it being $5,000, we start to realize that they're requesting maybe something like $7,000 or $8,000, $10,000 or $12,000 even in some of these examples. And while these aren't exact numbers, I will tell you that it's easy to do, because in retirement, every day, it's Saturday. How are you going to fill your time? What is your plan for retirement? We talk so much on this show about the planning of income, the investment side, taxes, legacy, healthcare planning, really those 5 worlds that we chat about. But have you given thought to how you're going to spend your time? Because what I can tell you is that those activities, they cost money. You might have to stick your hand into the candy jar, the cookie jar, and pull for those extra needs. My question to you is, have you planned for it? And I think that's extremely, extremely important. We need to have a plan in place so we can go back to it. It can kind of be the guardrails, if you will. If we get off our path, at least having that conversation with one of our fiduciary advisors allows us to either make changes in the plan, pivot and go a different direction, or to get us back up onto the path that we've been on, that we need to continue down. At least we need to have that conversation and plan accordingly. And one of those things that I think gets overlooked in the planning process, it is taxes. We've been talking about it on today's show, and I think it's critically important that you figure out what ways you can maximize your hard-earned money. One of those ways could be with our tax reduction report. It's my belief, and frankly, after doing this for nearly 2 decades, helping folks to and through retirement, it's my belief that most people agree with me that they want to keep that money in their own pocketbook. They want to give that to their spouse, their family, not necessarily wanting those hard-earned dollars to end up in Uncle Sam's pocketbook. So I would love to get you a copy of our tax reduction report, one that's tailored uniquely to you, and it's really simple. All you have to do is pick up the phone today and give us a call. The number is 855-955-6868. You're going to speak to one of our fiduciary advisors for a few minutes. We're going to see what strategies work well for your unique situation. We're going to go ahead and package that up, discuss with you what strategies make sense, and show you how much you might save. We could be talking tens of thousands, for some folks, hundreds of thousands of dollars throughout their retirement. And once again, it's as simple as picking up the phone. 855-955-6868. Kelly, back to you.
Have a question about retirement? Don't go anywhere. Zach has the answers coming up in our Q&A segment. Rooted in Retirement continues right after this.
Did you know taxes could be your biggest expense in retirement? No one can avoid taxes completely, but with the right strategies in place, you could potentially reduce your taxes in retirement. And reducing your taxes means more of your hard-earned money right back in your pocket. Call now for your free tax reduction report to uncover your future tax savings.
You probably have questions in retirement, and the good news is we've got Zach right here. Questions you get every single day, right?
Exactly, let's do it.
Okay, well, this question is from Rita. We have been retired for about 5 years, and we're expecting our first grandchild soon. What are some tips for starting a college savings fund?
Well, Kelly, there's a lot that comes to mind. A 529 plan is something that's good. And by the way, they have changed the rules on that here in just the last year and a half. So within, that time window. So what I'm saying that for is that if anyone has a 529 plan and you're watching, make sure you check into that. There's some ways that you can roll those out differently now. There's less penalties, there's less hoops. And I think, Kelly, that's a really good thing. So something like that would be something that makes sense. I think something that really makes a lot of sense is the day that that child gets any earned income, make sure you're putting money into a Roth IRA. It's a really great feature, potentially at a very low tax position because, hey, that child's probably not making all of that much money, maybe as a teenager. What is a way that we can get some money in there, start to grow it tax-free? And by the way, take it out tax-free for things like education, first-time home purchase, some other emergency needs. That's a great piece of the puzzle. So I would say focus on getting money to a Roth as soon as humanly possible.
Well, this next question is from Peter. I'm in my late 50s and I have more than $500,000 saved for retirement. I'm expecting an inheritance of at least $500,000. I'd love to retire early and I feel like I'm in good shape, but how can I find out for sure?
Well, that's awesome, Peter. What I would say, and Kelly, I know you and I have talked about this a lot, let's take a look at what are your needs, because let's just joke around here for a minute. If we only needed, maybe a couple grand a month for retirement, that'd be tough. But, well, he's probably in a pretty good spot. If we need to have $250,000 a year, well, I don't know the rest of the story, but maybe we should continue to work. And of course, we're being a little bit facetious there on both ends of the spectrum. I just would say, let's make sure we're building a plan to your needs. And I think that's a missing component a lot of times, really for many folks that call into the show. They want to make sure that they can be confident in their retirement years, and many times you just can't be if you haven't put that plan in place. We typically take a very conservative viewpoint to all of that, just to say, hey, listen, what if returns, Kelly, aren't that great? Like, what if they're just not 8, 10+% per year? What's it look like if inflation continues to be fairly high? What if cost of living adjustments to things like Social Security aren't that great? We package that up, and I think that income piece is a big part of our process that can really ease those fears or answer those questions, just like that gentleman.
Well, Samuel is a small business owner and has a question. Do you work with very many small business owners? I'm thinking of retiring in the next few years, and I'm trying to make sure that I have a good exit plan in place when the time is right.
Well, I tell you what, Samuel, I think that, I think about this a lot. Obviously, I have the firm as a business. I have a few other business ventures as well. And Kelly, this is something that I think many times business owners miss. What happens if something tragic happens? Do you have a plan in place where someone can take the business over? Or are you going to take care of your spouse and family if, once again, the business, it just goes away? Because sometimes it's so reliant on that business owner to operate it, keep it moving forward. On past that point, how are we selling the business? Are we selling property? Are we selling, some sort of intellectual piece of the puzzle? That is extremely important on how you draft that sale. We just helped a local car dealership actually sell. There was a couple components. There was the real estate that the car dealership sat on. That's a totally different animal than the S-Corp stock that was that of the dealership. Oh, and by the way, there was inventory as well. And the reason I bring up this example is we have to be thinking about, is it goodwill? Is it property? Is it actually physical real estate? All of these things are extremely important for business owners to step through. It's one of the reasons we have such a nice way to lean back to our attorney team when needed. And I would love to step in and see where we can help any business owners that are out there watching today, because it is something that, once again, is for many reasons near and dear to me.
Certainly a lot of resources. Well, Kathy asks, I get a lot of mail and phone calls about Medicare. How do I figure out what kind of supplemental insurance I might need to go with?
Well, about the time that you get anywhere near 65, you're going to get a lot of calls. So, Kelly, let me just tell you, now you're a ways out, okay, but I will tell you that they're going to bombard you with calls and the mail and emails. And I tell you, everyone's likely to make that shift and jump to that Medicare healthcare coverage. But yes, great question. How do we handle that supplement? There's things like Advantage plans. That can be great especially if you don't have many healthcare concerns, right? It's a bit of a way that you can kind of see, hey, do I classify at a lower rate because of my current health? Or once again, it's guaranteed acceptance on the general plans that are in place today. So I think that is something that can be great for just the typical Medicare supplement. But these costs can, of course, vary depending on how much care you want, what type of deductibles you want to have, how we're going to fill the donut hole of Medicare. All of those things are critically important. And it can be a really big cost in our retirement years, as once again, we've talked about it, that health care cost, it's our number one expenditure. So let's make sure that we're planning for it the right way.
And we know another big expenditure, potentially taxes that we've talked about. And I want to get back to the offer of the tax reduction report, because that, of course, is a big component, something that people can get in their hands.
Yeah. You know, one of the reasons that we talk so much about this tax reduction report is because it's unique to you. And I think that is critically important. And I think it's one of the missing links that we see from time to time. You know, many folks have said, hey, I've got my investments with this guy or gal. Or, hey, I'm feeling fairly comfortable about my income because of maybe it's a pension or our Social Securities. Boy, I tell you what, getting as much of that hard-earned money back to your pocketbook is a big deal. We're kind of sold this lie that we're going to be in such a lower tax position in our retirement years, and for most of my clients, that is simply not the case. So I want to get this tax reduction report in your hands today. It's a free offer. It's only for the viewers of the show today, and I want to make sure that you keep as much of that hard-earned money in your own pocket.
There's certainly a lot of value in this report. So to get more information on that, you can, we've been giving that number to you today. Again, that number is 855-955-6868. Remember, there is no cost or obligation, so don't wait. Here's that number again in case you missed it. It's 855-955-6868. Zach, of course, and myself, we thank you so much for joining us. If you want to learn ways to generate lifetime income, potentially reduce your tax bill, and maintain your lifestyle in retirement, reach out now. Zach and the team are ready to help you start building a retirement plan designed to help you flourish in retirement. For Zach and the team at Rooted Wealth Advisors, I'm Kelly Dame. We look forward to seeing you next time on Rooted in Retirement.